Welcome, people, to yet another episode of A Matter of Trust. I'm Yeshua, and this is Patrick, and today we're going to talk a little about fear and what exactly fear is and how to um, have favor in fear, how to get through your fear and get good outcomes instead. So, Patrick, let's. I would like to hear some of your thoughts about what exactly is fear and what is your experience of fear in general.
hmm Well, fear is it's something that tries to protect me. When I experience fear, it's uh, it's a part of me trying to say, okay, there's a risk here, there are consequences, and maybe you don't like them. Um, and that's just what it is, and it's not always right. Um, but but that's how I experience fear, and I still experience fear that I don't mm, discover. It's I can still be hit by fear, struck by fear, and then not until after I realize, hey, wait, that was fear that took me and stopped me or changed something. But as a practice looking into um, when fear strikes, then it becomes easier to make a choice that is conscious and that is like, okay, here's the risk. Do I want to take the risk or not? Is it really dangerous or not? Yeah, that's. I don't know if that. I'd like to hear
Definitely.
your words on what is fear to you.
Yeah, like I would definitely especially like the first part you said about fear is something trying to protect you. Because the way I see it, there's two kinds of fear that we are primarily running through. One is like a survival mechanism, and they're both actually is, but one is like a essential survival mechanism. The other is more of a mental barrier trying to keep you inside a comfort zone. So I kind of distinguish them between there's rational fear and there's irrational fear.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the rational fear, which is the fear that the fear of heights, the fear of loud noises, the fear of movement, fast movement. If a car swings by you very fast, for example, or you're driving in a car and you're crashing or something like that, that's a rational fear because that makes sense and it's there to protect you and alert you. So there's that, and then there's the irrational fear, and the irrational fear is mostly the way I see it, subconscious behavior that is programmed there to keep you in a certain um, safe comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of there to set some boundaries between, okay, well, right now I feel like I'm comfortable with having a job, with having this kind of job and doing this and this kind of thing, and it's the ego kind of take these as an identification. And when it takes these as identifications, you build these barriers, these limits, these um, boundaries to where your fear boundary is. So every time you step over this, you will be engaged in fear because it's outside of the comfort zone. And so when we talk about, for example, how to handle fear, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that it's important to notice that if it's rational fear, like for example, if you're hanging 5 meters above ground and you're thinking about jumping or something like that, you should probably just think an extra time or about if you want to do that, to make sure that your body is okay and you're not hurting yourself. Or is it because you're 1 meter above ground and you're hanging in one of these monkey bars, um, because if you fall there, nothing's bad is really going to happen. That's kind of irrational that you would fear that. So I think it's important to distinguish between if it's rational or irrational. If it's
Mm-hmm.
irrational, I think you should just go through it, chop through it, and just go through because it expands your awareness about yourself, expands your comfort zone, expands your capacity of courage.
Mm-hmm.
Because courage and bravery is not, it's not that you don't have fear. It is that you have fear, but you go against it either way. So I think these are the very essential points on when we talk about what is fear and how to confront it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also I think a lot of people probably, if they think about it, have experienced that they were scared of something and they had to go through the comfort zone. For example, if people go to school and they have exams, actually, most people do go to the exam, but a lot of people still feel fear. So that's an example of a situation where there is fear or can be fear, and still people break through it. And a lot of people also, at least what I noticed, and I believe it's a general case, when they finish the exam, the 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 rush of relief and like, yeah, empowerment, it's yeah,
Mm.
it does something. It makes one grow.
Exactly. Your soul, the way I see it, your soul is here to experience, and your soul craves that expansion again and again and again. There's like these three elements. There is the spirit, there's the mind, and there's the body. And and they all have their own like fuel for their system and their own experience that they are in charge of. And the soul is really, the spirit is really the experience. Like these kind of, when you break through these barriers of experiences that seems scary to you, but you actually go into the situation and you transmute it, because that's essentially what you do. If you
Mm-hmm.
look at it like at a energetical point of view, you actually confront the fear, which is like an emotion that is unprocessed. You go into it and you're willingly staying into it to figure it out. And when you come on the other side, you have processed the whole energy. So it's very different from what it used to be before. Um, that you can call that alchemy. In fact, that's exactly what alchemy is. Transforming from one state to another state.
Mm. Yeah. Soul alchemy, mind alchemy. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's the same thing. Potato, potato. It's
Yeah. Yeah,
definitely.
that's cool. And it's very personal. It's possible. It's not just some story of finding gold with a stick. This is the
Mm,
real deal.
definitely.
Um,
Definitely. Yeah.
so you mentioned you touched upon the topic of when fear is bad or good, because you mentioned rational and irrational. Um, is there more to be said about that? Maybe people can sometimes be in doubt. Like there might be situations where it's like, is it really? I mean, is it really rational or irrational? For example, let's say let's say that you're the person is mm, yeah. What if you have a lot of friends or you have like no friends, or there's a spectrum there, for example, and then you go out and take a chance in a social situation, like you can do something crazy and you can fear the judgment of some people, for example, and there could be consequences. There could be um, it could be that you depend on people, and maybe for a while it's good to depend on them because you need it for some situation, or it could be that you don't depend on people, and uh, and then what? There's not the same consequences because you don't risk anything. What? I mean, is it always like black and white, rational, irrational, or is it sometimes like should we always just do it if it's not the life? We don't lose life.
I would say it really depends on where you are in life and what kind of stage you've come to in life. For me, as I'm only speaking from the point of view where I personally am in my contemporary existence.
Yeah.
And for me, it's going straight through all of these barriers, because I'm in a period where I realize that all of these different mental barriers have just been there as a part of a programming that is not suitable for the kind of being that I really am expressing when I'm doing this, for example, and doing my other YouTube channel, Yeshua Sofus, and such, like, and having conversations like I had on Instagram yesterday as well. It's so for me, it's that. But I can see that for others, like, when it comes to awareness, we're
Mm-hmm.
all at different stages. So, and we all have a certain aspect of ourselves where we do fear, but we are unaware, happily unaware of this. Like, ignorance is bliss,
Yeah.
happily unaware of this fear that we have. So we don't actually take action on it or go deeply into it, because we're either trying to avoid it in some way, which is very natural, or we kind of uh, are not aware of it, which is also like the most natural thing in the world, because we're constantly expanding our awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of that as well. If you feel like you're at some point where you have doubt, you have to examine further. You have to really look deeply into what is this exact thing that I'm experiencing here, and go examine it. Because if you have doubt and you're not sure exactly what it is, you have to experiment with it. You have to kind of dig deep into figuring out what exactly is this for me. Is there other voices inside my head that I relate to, other people saying these specific things to me, that I should do this and that, or isn't that way, or is it clearly my own intuition and my own light shining through and telling me this is the right thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I would say that.
Yeah. So it makes me think that there's there's probably something about there's a lot about letting go. I mean, there are risks involved every time we face fear, do something that is not necessarily, you know, what others would suggest we do, or just automatically applaud. Because in this world we function in society, we function with people around us, but still we have to make space for our own expression and growth, and uh, and it's I mean, at different times in life we are just we can do a lot that doesn't have consequences for other people, and then other times in life what we do is very visibly affecting other people. You can be single, for example, or you can have a family with children and stuff. And so acting, leaning into fear, doing things regardless of fear, it does take the willingness to sacrifice something sometimes, and takes the willingness to let go of something that was. And the more we are in intertwined, or what can I say, with others, it takes that ability to let go and that ability to accept the risk. It really has to be high and higher. The more we're linked to others and linked to, the consequences are just different.
Right. And you're completely right. Like, the way I see it, I have this philosophy that I use in every example I give ever. That life is always a full circle. When you look at yin and yang, for example, it's always a full circle. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of mythical examples of what the universe is and what you are and what God is, that always is symbolized with a circle. And and I think the circle is a symbolism of everything in your life. Every moment in your life is a full circle. Everything is full. Like, there's no point of your life, even when you were down in the coal cellar and you were feeling like shit, or when you're totally blissed out and happy and ecstatic. Like, both both experiences are full circle. They're all like a full experience, a perfect experience. because it's relative to what you have thought for yourself is possible in the past. So it expresses itself in the present.
Mm-hmm.
So the point that you're saying with letting go of things and really letting yourself confront that part of letting go, because it's difficult to let go and really have that kind of faith and trust. It takes time to build it. Then you really start to let go of the things that is not serving you right now. And when you do that, there's part of the circle. Like imagine it's a circle, and you take a slice, like a little slice, and it goes away because you let something go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this part that has not been filled out now needs to be filled out. But with what? With what you attract to it. So if you attract something more desirable to you, if you have like other visions of what you would like that spot to be filled with, you attract that by resonating with it, by connecting with it, with in terms of thoughts, feelings, and actions. And when you do that, you will full circle again, start to fill this circle up again.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like it's not like it takes dedication to go full in like a cold turkey and just do it immediately. But you can also very effectively do what I call micromanaging, where you little by little like push yourself a little bit further, and it might come to a point where it's a little bit too hard to break through, and it costs you a little bit too much of your peace of mind, because peace of mind is invaluable. And so you might jump a little step back, but that doesn't mean that the progress you have made before is not still there. You have still made it. You just push the line a little bit more, and you have come to a new consciousness. Then you can start to let that go again, that is left there, because ultimately it's like what you give attention grows. So, and what you don't give attention and what you let go of shrinks. So the more you let go of something, the less it shrinks down to, the less it feels in your life. And the more you give attention to something new that's supposed to sprout more, the more you'll see that grow in your life. It's like weeds. They grow every year, but every time you pick them up, they get less and less everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They're less and less abundant. So it's just about, weeding out regularly and not being too hard on yourself for not being able first time you did it to just go through and just cut it, like it's you can do that, and go for it if you're one of those that just does that. I've done that many times regarding many things, but sometimes it's just better to take it one step at a time, because it costs you your peace of mind and you'll be restless, and it's just not a nice way to do it, so probably a good thing to find a balance with it. I would say this is my personal opinion from what I'm experiencing right now and what I experienced in the past. So don't take my word for it, but experiment yourself. Like I said before, this is all you. So it's your experiment, it's your experience, and you should really just try and see what works for you.
That's I totally agree on that. It's so individual for all of us, and of course, part of our mission is to put words on things that are not necessarily that easy to put words on for everybody, because it's not everybody having these conversations. And actually, I also hear that two things. It seems that to let go of something in order to it's easier. It sounds like it's easier to let go of something when you have something you want instead. Like the metaphor with the garden. If you remove the weed, that's fine. You can do that, but it'll come back. You can keep removing it, it'll come back. But if you remove the weed and plant something else that you would like instead, the weed cannot that easily come back. And eventually, if you help the new thing that you planted, the weed has no room because you planted the beautiful flower or whatever food you wanted. And so it seems one thing is letting go, but and that is like facing fear, letting go of the risk, and letting go, like accepting consequences. And that's probably easier when having some idea of what would be nice instead. It's probably, and so getting us seems that's in between the lines of what you said. I heard that, okay, have a strong willingness to or yeah, strong will towards something, wish, will, desire towards something. And then just to just to comment on this thing about going all in or micromanaging. I know I experienced both, and I can see what situations made one thing possible and the other possible, or made it easier. And it's like when I was traveling on my own with a small backpack, I could do anything in a split second and make a new decision and do whatever. And that was so simple, so easy to change everything in no time. And then in other situations, after I decided to go back to Denmark, my home country, and they say, okay, Patrick, try and stay here for some years, because I gave myself that challenge after being like the guy traveling. I was like, do that and see what happens, see what that can do. And that was a little bit like, I have to let go of the spontaneous trips that I would often do, because I wanted that experiment to see, okay, what do you win when you get stable geographically? And I realized, okay, there's something to win in one thing and the other. But it also meant I was more tied down because I started to get linked to people and places, So and then micromanaging, doing things step by step, becomes more relevant. I mean, you can still do crazy stuff, like make big changes, but yeah, I just wanted to say that I could relate to both. Actually, makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah, and I think after you have taken like big decisions and really broken through and had a breakthrough with these kind of experiences, which you seem like is a big thing at first. The first time you ever see a vision, it feels like this big thing. But the thing is, like, you need that powerful breakthrough at first. And so when you continuously develop that awareness around these breakthroughs around fear and how to go through it, you also get more used to that feeling. So you get more, it doesn't feel that heavy anymore. It feels more and more soft. It feels more and more normal. Like you can probably imagine, like I've been to multiple transformative, personal transformative events. And I know you also been to one of the same ones, which is called Real Magic. And I remember this kind of energy in there, and certain people had a kind of energy that kind of would frighten my inner emotions in some way, because these people were on another frequency. They have built a more normal way of behaving in a certain high frequency. And when you get used to that same frequency or your own version of that frequency, you also get more used to being around these people. So you kind of, things get a little bit more easier to say, and it makes more sense to make small baby steps along the way, because you know that these small baby steps are actually relatively small, because you have developed so much and expanded so much that a small baby step for you might be a giant leap for someone else. Like when I started my YouTube channel, that would seem to some people like this is a giant step. For me, it was like completely natural. Now just do this. Didn't feel fear about it. I just knew it's a step I have to make, and I feel like doing this. So now I just jump straight into it and do it. For some people, they will sit and shake and watch the views and be like, "Oh my God, is this enough? How many subscribers am I having?" And it's not that I'm not thinking about these things, but I'm not panicking about it. I'm like completely. I'm just watching. Okay, well, I see. Okay, I make a new video. I keep a count of the watch time, keep count of the subscribers and how many viewers there is. Okay, well, good evaluation. Continue. It for me it's normal. For some people, they would freak out about this. So again, when you start out, when you make these breakthroughs, it feels heavy, it feels strong, it feels like very intense. I remember I remember one of the first big breakthroughs, which is a very small thing, but the first I can kind of remember now was that there was a woman on the street that I felt resonant with, and there's just this resonant feeling about her, and I was like, okay, if she stops up now, I'm gonna go over and say hi to her. She stops, I'm like, fuck, now I have to do it, and I was like, okay, I go to her, and I just looked at her and said, hi, and she said, hi, and I didn't know what to say. I just went, um, I just felt I somehow knew you, and I wanted to say hi. So yeah, okay, well, hi, have a nice day, and then I left. But I was smiling on my whole face away from there because I knew I did something that was completely irrational and against everything that I knew to be right inside myself. And now when I do that, it seems like a normal thing to me. When I go over say hi to someone, I come with a funny comment about something. It's just a more normal thing to do. So it's really about making those breakthroughs in the start that feels uncomfortable to you, because it feels heavy in the beginning, but it gets so much more easy the more you get into it. It's nice. It's like for everything else. Same thing with skills that you build. The more reps you take in when you work out, the easier it gets to lift kilos, and you can go up in kilos and you can take more reps or whatever you prefer. It's the same thing essentially.
So it sounds like good practice to actually pay attention to small ideas. Like, if you get a sensation, oh, if she stops, I should say hi. I mean, all the time we can have small ideas, big or small, however we feel about them, but all the time we consider something. We think maybe I should do this. And actually, a good practice could be generally paying attention to these ideas, thoughts, and then acting on them. Because that is facing that fear. And it can be, with these small things. And you can feel it a lot even with the small. It can seem a small thing to walk over to a person and say hi. Actually, when you talk about it, it sounds like, yeah, why don't we always, like, people deserve a hi, right? And a smile. But I know that it can be, I mean, depending on the situation and the person, it can be quite intimidating. It's not necessarily the easiest. So it's a really good practice, I would say.
Yeah, and I would say exactly. It's like no matter how little the thing is, it's still you're going through fear. For example, yesterday I was going around picking bottles because in Denmark you can pick bottles and you can pawn them, so you can get a little bit of money. So I wanted to have a bit of fruit, so I was picking some bottles, and I noticed the pattern that I was avoiding when there was people around. I would avoid certain the trash cans, even though I knew there was something in there that I could use. And then I was like, huh, this is fear talking me away from actually doing something and getting like a little gold nugget somewhere. And and then I was like, okay, so I have an opportunity right here, right now, for actually developing my courage. So I intentionally went over to all the places where I saw there were people. I opened the trash can and just went down and went for the bottles that I could use and picked those, and just went through it. And every time I caught myself like doubting or trying to close because someone came, I was just like, okay, just gonna open this up and go through it. And it's such a great way to like take small actions in your life that you feel a little bit fearful about, some things that you avoid because oh no, someone is watching now, or oh no, what would people think of me? Going against these kind of things, like in a just small steps at a time, is really something that makes a difference. Like at some point, you will do something greatly, like the example of the YouTube channel, for example. You do something greatly courageous out of like because it feels normal to you, because you have trained it so much consistently. that it just doesn't mean that much to you in terms of fear. It's just normal that you pursue greater things.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of see fear as actually the pursuit of greater things, because every time you go through it, you become more courageous. When you do something courageous, you risk a lot of things. Like you risk either a mental state or some kind of safety or security, or sometime sometime some type of well-being or something like that. And every time you risk that, you also get an equal return on the other end. So it makes you go for bigger and bigger achievements, I would
Mm-hmm.
say.
And just makes you, I mean, even in the small, if you don't worry about what would people think about you if you act in a certain way, then it might be more relaxing to be around people, and be in life, because life is often around people. Many times you will meet people if we want to make things happen in life. So it's really, really good. And I think that's very relatable, to be honest. This thing about this idea that, oh, these kind of people are around, so now I behave like this. I mean, if we pay attention to what's going on inside our body, it shifts depending on what people are walking around us, or who's there. I experienced this myself. So I like the example you gave, and I know I practice it myself, but now I'm gonna be a little more conscious about it. I'm actually gonna try to increase my be very specific on what did I feel there? What did I avoid doing because someone was present? How did I adapt? And I'll try to just go a little deeper into challenging myself on this just a little more, because it can also be autopilot. We can do it for a while and then we stop. So it's such good. I like it. I like when I did it, and I'm gonna, yeah, good reminder.
Definitely. Like the more you go through fear, the more you actually confront those things inside you that feels like fear, feels like a certain resistance. The more you go against it, the more you will realize that this thing is actually there to help you to expand.
Hmm.
It's just that it's uncharted territory. It's undiscovered territory. And when you expand your awareness, when you expand your courage and your opportunities, this will happen. It's inevitable that you will have to go through fear. So I
Hmm.
kind of see it as a either a good friend or your cousin to success,
Hmm.
because it's really a good pointer to what to do to grow where you are right now. If you want to grow consistently on a grander scale, like going against fear is definitely a great way to do so, because you learn so much by doing it, and you give so little fucks when you come down the road, and it's amazing. It's quite the experience, because you really get to just enjoy being, and not thinking about too much what is my thoughts, what is other people's thoughts, because you know them, like you know them from exploring the fear.
So
It's just expansive
so fear so
awareness.
fear um so fear is actually something to be aware of, because that's potential lying right there. Potential growth if we experience fear. And this can make it exciting. This can make it exciting when we experience fear, experience being nervous, experience this hesitation of any kind. We can get curious about it. It's not it ca- And then it can start to be actually like almost feel good, or at least like an adventure, like, or exploration. We say, okay, why am I nervous here? What's going on? Something is There's something here I'm not mastering, and actually it means there's something I can get better at. Do I want to get better here? Of course, sometimes I may not want it. I want to spend my time doing something else, but I should know that I can. There's something here that I can improve on. And that's every time. Feeling nervous, feeling fearful, hesitating. That makes it interesting. That's even talking about it now, it makes me think, hey, hey, I want to be even better. I want to be really good at noticing when it happens, catching it, and then making a conscious decision. Do I want to get better here? Would that be cool? Or is it fine? I choose something else.
Right, and you can still like feel that there's a certain kind of fear. For example, my thought about yesterday when I picked the bottles, for example, was that, well, I'm building successful habits. Is the way I'm building my life. So you can kind of see that picking bottles and pawning them is not like a successful habit. But instead of looking at it like that, you can see, okay, how can I make this a successful habit? Because there's also this fruit that I do want to have, that I really desire to have. So why not make it a successful thing? So I can have like certain means to get a certain outcome. And so instead of looking at it like that, which was like it's not successful, not successful. Successful people do not go in trash cans and look for bottles to pawn. Instead of looking at that, I was looking at the potential of me growing myself through what I was doing, because inevitably I'm doing what I'm doing in the moment to make the best of my opportunities, and keep being creative about how can I grow with what I'm doing so I can transition constantly. Because I know that collecting bottles right now is just like it's just a contemporary thing. It's not something that's going to last forever. It's not like I'm going to be a millionaire, still do this thing. I'm completely aware of that. This is just like right here, right now, I can create a badass story by doing this. I was thinking to myself, okay, if people look at me while I'm picking these bottles, and they come over to me and they say, hey, what the fuck are you doing, man? You're poor homeless man. you know, I was just like, I was just look at them like, you know what? Look at me in 10 years from now. Just watch the television. Just watch YouTube. You'll see why I did this thing. I'll tell you exactly why I did this, and you'll see exactly what's happening. Like the story is it's more potent. And you have to keep that in mind. Like, okay, well, it may seem right now that this thing is not like completely compatible with where I wish to be and desire to be. But think about the story. I mean, look at the bigger perspective. There's so much more to learn. There's so much opportunity in every little moment that you can easily just grab and make use of. So just like we talked about in our previous videos, failure, it's all about perception. It's all about how to utilize your perception into creating successful habits and creating a successful life for yourself. Because even the crazy man on the street can become like a very successful person. It's just a matter of perception, matter of how you build that.
We never know what's going on inside. What vision?
No.
I mean, the
Yeah.
person collecting bottles. I tried that myself. It works when if you have nothing. That's still something. But actually, a person with a vision that people look at and say, "Oh, that guy has nothing." But if the person has a vision inside his mind or her mind, that person is richer and more successful than a person seemingly comfortable, having roof above his or her head, and not having any idea where to go and what to do in life. I mean, so it's a lot about perception and about having some direction. People cannot see our direction. People cannot see where we're going and what we see. So it never makes sense to really judge people for what they're doing in the moment. We have no clue what's going on inside and what's being built. Any person, any character being built, that story, you're on point when you say the story. The story. And I think maybe we talked about it before, that life can be seen as a movie. Life is seen as a story, as a movie, an exploration, an adventure. All these things, it makes it different. It's
Right.
like a game. Oh, sorry. Can I just want to mention one last thing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Sure.
it's because also like a game, because I used to be like a video game addict, I would say, because yeah, it was too much. It was and daily, and then now I just see, okay, life can also be a game. And that makes me look at it in a playful way. So that's just, I just wanted to mention that too, because it can be relevant for others also. Yeah.
Definitely. And yeah, people get so easily caught up in the other story that life is not a story. It's just like this completely crazy thing that we experience for no apparent reason at all. And it's the more you actually study into yourself and knowing yourself, both mentally, spiritually, and physically, you start to realize how nuts it is to think this way, because nothing can exist out of nothing. Like it all has like a certain meaning, all has a purpose. Like nothing would be here if there's not a purpose behind it. Like there wouldn't be roof on this if there wasn't any idea of me covering me from rain, and all the books are from rain. Or there wouldn't be no floor if there wasn't meant for people or animals to walk on it, or streets for cars to go, and all these things, food in the shops for people to buy. It all has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. Like even plants are there to make oxygen, and oxygen we breathe, and we give them carbon dioxide, and they take the carbon dioxide and make oxygen, and we take the oxygen and make carbon dioxide. It's the whole circle. Everything has a purpose. And the more you study into these kind of things, doesn't matter what you study, because every little thing that you can study is the same thing. You'll see it's exactly the same thing. It never changes. It's a story that's repetitive, but it changes in its expression. And this is a kind of a good pointer that I always remind myself of, that when I'm thinking about certain people, for example, that I'm not immediately resonating with, I'm thinking, well, the universe has so many different expressions and expresses through us in different ways. And so I'm not supposed to understand each and every expression, as long as I understand that every expression has a purpose and a meaning, and there's a deeper meaning behind it. Like this person is very valuable to some people. This person is someone who inspires others. This person is someone who inspires others to not be like him or her or whatever. Like there's so many different ways, so many different expressions that is all there and all helpful. Like nothing is by coincidence. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And it's a big idea to wrap your head around, but it really, when you start to study deeply into yourself and the subjects that you really love you see that it's the same thing everywhere. Everything is from one source. Everything is. I'm taking this way too much out, but
It's
it's just when a passion comes through, it has to come through, and that's just I just
it's
gotta do it.
I think some you mean you say several things there, and it's true that it kind of gets deep, and what I think is probably quite relatable is something about this. Everything has a purpose. I think you mentioned great examples, and so let's say I don't know anything about plants. It doesn't mean that they don't produce oxygen. They still produce oxygen that I breathe, and that's a good purpose. That's just one purpose. There's so many things connected. Things have reason for being the way they are, and the more we study, the more we are curious about the world, then a new thing makes sense to us. And if that happened, let's say 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, that I learned a new thing, then I understand it, and I realize, hey, okay, that makes sense too. I don't know how many times that has to happen before we accept the fact that, probably that will always be the case. If nothing makes sense to me, if something doesn't make sense to me now, it's not because it doesn't make sense. It's just because I don't understand it. And accepting that can kind of bring me to this state where I'm just feeling certain that, yeah, of course, everything has a purpose. But it doesn't
Exactly. It's
mean
a
that I
state of
understand everything.
Yeah, definitely. It's a state of acceptance. The state of just being in complete acceptance with everything is perfectly as it is. Everything is a full circle all the time around. It's never not a full circle. Like there cannot be not a full circle. There's always something to fill up the circle. And yeah, it's the perfect example of that. Like the whole acceptance thing, definitely.
Mm. Yeah, Yeah, it's nice. I feel your passion also. That's really
Oh, that's great.
something.
I'm here to share my passion all the way through. So if I
Yeah,
cannot share my passion, I'm not going to be here. Just so everyone knows, if I can't share my passion, I have no reason to be somewhere. Not at all.
no.
That's why I don't see my family very often.
I know that the reason we're doing this is because I feel that passion, and I recognize things, and it can also make me like go like, yeah, hey, wait, this, and this is really nice. I think, have we said something about, maybe indirectly, about the opposite of fear? Is there an opposite to fear? I know that we talk about perception and how fear actually is not that bad because it can be seen as a potential, but maybe it's also interesting to talk about, is there something to be on the lookout for that is actually is there an opposite, and is it relevant? I was thinking of it, but
Right. You could say that there's an opposite of fear. Um, courage would be some kind of opposite of fear, bravery. But at the same time, it's not really. Actually, yes, I would say it is, because when you go into fear, it's again like it's an energy that you confront that you're uncomfortable with, but you transmute it through the process of courage. So you go into it, and that same energy um, turns from being fear to being something that you process, like I mentioned before. So you process the feeling of that you perceive as fear, and you transmute it, you transform it um, into being courage instead, into being normal, into being integrated into your system, to be more comfortable with that kind of fear. So I guess you could say that courage is kind of opposite, or more like the process to take you through fear.
mhm.
Um,
It would,
More like the process to take you through fear, I would say.
yeah. And
I'm not sure if there is. Do you think there's an opposite of fear in that sense?
I well, I was just thinking, I've encountered it. I encountered a mentioning in material of opposite of fear. But before I say something specific there, I can say that, as you mentioned the process, and if something was fearful at first, it can be going to a stranger and saying hi, or it can be starting a YouTube channel, or publishing a video. But if after a while using courage, it's no longer fearful. If you don't feel fear, what do you feel when you do it? Because is that an opposite? What
Empowerment.
That's empowerment, yeah.
I would say empowerment. You would feel empowered after that you go through fear and you actually discover the other side of fear. So empowerment, yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Actually, that's that from the process of courage, of having fear, going through it with courage, actually gives you empowerment in the end. It's the end result of it. Which empowerment is like it's also your own self-esteem essentially, like your your expression of yourself, your um, your full expression of yourself, your more potent and true expression of yourself.
Mm. So it's also being empowered and maybe confident. Like,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
so confidence is also a potential counterpart, or like, I also think about when we go to a situation and we just feel that everything is in its right place. Like, as if I don't need to bring courage, I don't need to bring anything. It's just like, whoa, here everything just falls into the right place. Is I wonder what that is. And I know some people have maybe mentioned faith or love as opposites, to fear. They mention it, and if fear was not even there in a situation, and you still, so you didn't have to process it to get to some other side, is it then just living in faith, not in fear? Was it a situation in faith or in love? Like, because
Right. That
this.
that makes a lot of sense. Like faith or love would also be a possible opposite of fear. Because essentially you have two choices in life that you in every single situation of your life you have two choices. These are the only two choices that you have. You can say you can't or say you can. And you can say that you have fear or you can say that you love or have faith. So there's only these two options. Like it's love or fear, love or hate, whatever you want prefer to call it. So so in that sense, yeah, do you trust? Love is like trust is a form of love. So do you trust that what you have, that you truly wish and desire to live in this life, is what you're truly are giving to experience in this life? Or are you in a state of fear where you don't really trust or believe that this is possible for you? So you rather not confront it or even try it because you don't think it's even possible for you? I mean, these are belief systems. So you have a choice here. You can either say you can or you can't. So yeah, I would subscribe to that idea actually, that love or faith could be an opposite to fear and hate.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Fear, faith, hate, love. Yeah,
Yeah, but I also,
right there.
fear and faith kind of, there's something there, something
Yeah,
there. Fear
yeah,
and faith,
definitely.
living in fear, living in faith. I don't know, and maybe it's just to start with F, both. That sounds nice, but I've seen it before, and I know that material is pointing in these directions, and it's good to be aware of these things. It's good to be aware of what state am I in, how do I feel in the body, what thoughts, how relaxed am I around in some situations, and when I'm acting in life, when I'm taking action, how can it feel? Because it can, you know, practicing with facing fear also means that can potentially take more to feel fear. I mean, so it's possible to get comfortable with more and more things. So it also means you have to actually push yourself more to experience fear and to face fear and to grow, I guess. But this is interesting. So there'll be more and more
Yeah,
of what is not fear. There'll be more and more of that because we sort of get rid of it a bit. We replace it when facing it, overcoming it.
yeah. And the thing is, like with everything, I remember when people talk about the first time they make a sale, for example, that's the best time they ever sold something. Like the first time they actually made a sale, just feels so empowering to them. And even though they made like that was like a $50 sale, and they made like a million sale later on, it was still the first one that felt the best. And I think this is the same example because the first time you confront fear and really go through it, you feel so empowered. Like it's such a big carrot. I mean, it's I have not experienced that have been such a thing that felt so great as the first time when I really went through my fear. Not that I can mention like the first time I clearly remember it, but I remember the feeling. I remember clearly the feeling of going through that and actually overcoming it. That was empowerment. But afterwards, it seems like it's it's the same feeling in a like I mentioned before. Also, it's the same feeling. You just get more and more used to a bigger energy container, so it can kind of contain more fear without noticing it as being a deliberating fear or something like that. Something that habilitates you or debilitates you or something like that.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Mm.
that's
Good.
what I would say. I would say that that you get used to it more and more. and it's just it gets easier and easier. And the first time is always the most enjoyable one. It never beats the first time, no matter how um, how little it may seem. Like the example with that woman that I met that I just said hi to out of random, or your first sale, or the first time you asked a girl or boy to be your boy or girlfriend. You know, same thing. The first time is always the best. Then it gets more and more normal. Then you kind of get used to the whole thing, and it kind of, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't put too much more into that. That's I think that's plenty already.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yes. I wonder if that's yeah, it's just things to be aware of. Be aware of when, how do you feel? When is it fear? And making a choice of what to learn here.
right.
Writing a story using fear as indicator and having something to replace it with. Thinking of what can actually come out of it. It's often worth the risk. It's often worth it. It's so easy to see when, if people are in love with another person and they say, and they dare talk to that person and ask them out or something. It's always worth the risk. Because yeah, you can get a rejection, but if it's returned, or if you get a yes, then it's everybody knows if they tried that it's worth it. It's
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, like you said, check the story. I mean, check the story and see. Okay, well, first I would say check if it's a rational fear or it's an irrational fear. Because if it's something that rationally puts yourself or others in danger, it's probably not a fear that you want to follow. Because this is a rational one that's actually there to make sure that you survive and thrive. So don't follow that. I would say the irrational fear, though, you need to be very more aware of, very much more persistent in overcoming, because these are there to keep you in a pattern that you're comfortable and used to.
Mm,
And then if you keep to being in that, it just does not make you grow. Uh, so always being aware if it's rational or irrational helps me to navigate where I can, in this very specific moment that I'm in, help myself to develop. And then always check the story. If you do something and you know that, um, for example, this is a hard example for me to give, but I'm a entrepreneur by spirit. So I'm sorry, it's a little funny. There's a woman out here just waving at a seagull that is completely mad. Sorry, I was distracted.
life happens.
Oh yeah, it happens definitely. Yeah, that's gonna come up on my blog. I made some content for that. Anyways, so the irrational fear, go through that and make sure that you check the story, um, because you can always change the story within your mind, uh, no matter how one certain situation is. Like for example, my situation is apparently homeless and no income, for example, and this is not exclusively with not successful. The story behind that is success itself, because I know that these things not doesn't mean that I'm not successful. It means that I'm going through a process of development and growth that makes me extremely abundant and successful. Um, because I'm aware of the law of polarity, that you have one side like the dark, and you have also the light, and you have to find a middle point between them. So if you go from a point where you have absolutely nothing, you'll eventually go to a point where you have absolutely everything, if you are of that awareness. So check the story and see, how can I change the story that I'm living in? How can I connect this to my vision? How can I connect this to something that actually uh, that I can give on, a story that I can give to people at some point, where they can understand that, oh, what I'm going through is actually not that hard. It's actually just a part of my story. It's actually part of that value that I give people later on. So
Hmm.
yeah, I would say those two are very essential. And knowing that fear is your friend, like, it's a very great guideline. It's always where growth happens, when you go against fear. Like, I remember talking to my first mentor in person. I was scared shitless and I could barely speak. And I was shaking my legs, but I still went there and talked with him, even though it was like 1 minute or so. I just still went there and did it. You know, every little thing matters. Now, if I meet him, I would be able to stand and say these exact same things to him. If I ever were to meet him again, I probably am someday, but who knows? It's just every step counts. Every little step counts. Like, micromanaging is a great way of doing it once you have really broken through and faced that fear for good.
Hmm. I think, yeah, there are good examples there, and I think the story is what makes it so much easier and or purposeful to actually facing these fears, whether they seem small or big. Is it part of that story I like to tell? The story we like to see our life unfold as, because we can rewrite it. And yeah, I think the story we like to tell about our lives can motivate us to face fears and grow.
Yes, definitely. Like, being homeless, I could easily just like lay around in my hammock all day and like be shit pissed at the world and not do a single thing. But I utilize this situation. I have never worked out and never had such a good shape that I have now as I have right now. Like, I've intensely worked out. I have I have the most motivation and ambition that I've ever had. I am creating and producing even more than I ever have. It's all about how I look at the story. It's all about how I relate to what I'm doing, to that which I'm telling people. Like, I'm showing all of you guys exactly what it takes to do whatever you want. That's exactly what I'm doing. It's the same thing for everyone else. They all have a story. Every successful person have a story. And they also come to the same conclusion, that they have a personal story. They have like their own thing, and within their own thing, there's actually like a greater perspective, which is the same thing, and we all operate from the same thing. So it's just connecting to this, and see, okay, well, where's my part, God? Show me, and I'm yours, and I'm wangle dangly all day, for you. it's it's simple as that. Simple as that.
Simple.
Life's an
Yeah.
adventure, and we should love it.
Simple is
Yeah.
it's so easy to say once you see it or feel it, see the simplicity of in the complex. But we are we are gonna wrap it up in a while. So do you have something final to say? I think you already said good stuff.
Yeah, I would say good luck, guys. See you.
Yeah, yeah. I no, but I think it's
Yeah,
really good
but
to yeah.
yeah, but really, it may seem scary at first. It may seem scary at first, but really believe that when you come across that fear, there's something so much more great for you. There's something so much more resonant. This is where you actually start to believe that something greater than what you have experienced so far is possible. You start to expand your awareness. You start to expand your possibilities. You start to really get to live this adventure that life is, and see that for what it is. So don't be so shit scared from fear. I mean, it's your best friend. It can seem like the worst enemy, but it's your best friend. I just want to put that out there for anyone who's listening.
And once you broke through fear one time, you know you can do it. So you can actually do it again. The more you do it, the more obvious it becomes to you and natural that, hey, I can, it doesn't stop me. It just shows me opportunities. Hmm. Thank you very much for being part of this and following, watching. And I'm Patrick. My co host is Jeshua. And this is a matter of trust.
Hell yeah.